Hello everyone, welcome to Elections Predictions and Analysis, and today's video is counting down the top 10 hypothetical Democratic open primary winners in the 2028 Democratic primary. The methodology used is to calculate an experience score and a talent score, and average them with minor adjustments for other factors such as interest in running for president, electability, age, and possible positives for voters such as being a veteran or a milestone candidate. Before we get into the top 10, let's start with a couple honorable mention candidates who just missed the list: Colorado Governor Jared Polis and Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. While both have potential to be future party leaders, Sherrod Brown has indicated he is more interested in Senate leadership, and in 2028 may be too early for Polis. While Polis has shown initiative and ability to gain support from voters, he is still only 44 and just beginning his first term as Colorado Governor. Polis is term limited out in 2026. Therefore, I predict Polis would run in a Democratic primary in 2028, but would not have enough name recognition to win. Sherrod Brown appears content to work his way up the Senate ladder, and by declining to run for president at all this year, he appears to be more interested in looking to become whip or Senate leader. Now number 10, Julian Castro. If a Democratic candidate defeats Trump in 2020, Castro seems like a perfect candidate for a high-profile cabinet seat, as he looks to be a skillful debater and politician, but lacks the experience right now to have too much of an impact in the 2020 election. By 2028, Castro could have enough experience to be a leading candidate for a Democratic nomination. Next, number 9, Tammy Baldwin. If not for Buttigieg, Baldwin could become the first LGBT major party nominee in U.S. history in 2028. Baldwin has shown she can dominate in the industrial Midwest and will have a fantastic electability argument when she runs. Baldwin is a possible vice presidential pick that fits with almost any presidential nominee, especially with her home in the state of Wisconsin. Next, number 8, Amy Klobuchar. Klobuchar has not gained much traction thus far in the 2020 Democratic field and still needs to prove her debate skills, but she is relatively young and will most likely be in the Senate for many decades in the future. Klobuchar will always have an electability argument, but is behind the major leftwards economic shift of the Democratic Party's viewpoint. However, after Biden retires, she could be the leading moderate candidate, but in other scenarios, Buttigieg would win the majority of Biden's old moderate voters. Next, number 7, Stacey Abrams. An incredibly popular pick for vice president. The issue that keeps Abrams from being even higher in this list is she still has not had a job in Congress or as a governor. While her campaign against Brian Kemp for Georgia governor was incredibly impressive, only in relatively unlikely scenarios where she becomes senator of Georgia in 2020 or vice president in 2020 will Abrams have enough experience to win the nomination in 2028. 2032 or 2036 is a more realistic timeline for Abrams. 6, Beto O'Rourke. Beto would have been much higher on this list before he completely fumbled through his first debate. Beto, like Abrams, had a legitimately impressive loss in Ruby Red, Texas, as both his fundraising and his final result were much better than most originally expected. The question is whether Beto has any policy depth and can gain experience before 2028. Those questions will most likely be answered by the end of this election cycle, and many wonder whether Beto would drop out of the presidential race to challenge John Cornyn for the Texas Senate seat in 2020. Number 5 is Chris Murphy. Senator Murphy is a fast riser, becoming senator at only 40, and by 2028 he will have served nearly 3 full terms in the Senate. Murphy has made headlines for walking over 100 miles across Connecticut 2 years in a row to talk to constituents, along with his legendary 15-hour Senate filibuster that lasted until the Senate agreed to vote on pro-gun control legislation. Murphy has among the most potential out of all the sitting Democratic senators, and 2028 seems like a reasonable timeline for a presidential run. A Murphy endorsement in 2020 will be interesting to watch for as well. Another sitting senator is at number 4, Tammy Duckworth. An Asian American female veteran who lost her leg fighting for America, Duckworth instantly has superficial appeal. However, Duckworth is also a skilled politician who will gain experience, and by 2028, Duckworth will be near the end of her second Senate term and only 60. Duckworth is also a nifty vice presidential pick in 2020, which would further quicken her rise through the ranks of the Democratic Party. Number 3, Cory Booker. Although Booker has not gained very much traction so far in 2020, he is lined up to potentially be the future face of the progressive wing of the party. Booker has and still is a great story, starting from the bottom as a member of the Newark City Council and still living in Newark's inner city. Booker's a powerful speaker and debater, but has been overshadowed by Harris so far this election cycle. Booker is still only 50, and it's easy to imagine a scenario where his popularity grows over time. Number 2. Senator Kamala Harris. The only reason Harris is not in the first spot is it's easy to imagine a reality where Harris becomes the nominee before 2028. Whatever happens in a general election, Harris would most likely not win an open primary in 2028 if she had already been the nominee. After a dominant performance in the first debate, there's a possibility Harris's time is now and not later. And finally, number 1, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg will most likely not win the nomination in 2020 because of his lack of political experience, but as he moves up the political ladder, he will gain support. Buttigieg appears to be the future of the center-left portion of the party, relatively moderate economically, but a staunch social progressive. Solar runs far beyond his potential to be the first LGBT Democratic nominee. The war veteran gives crisp and detailed answers to any question put his way, while his humble upbringing makes him avoid the elitist label. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, and enjoy the Democratic debates this week.